Hi, welcome to my video, How to Blend Using Acrylic Paint. This is a sort of technique that I'm going to show you how to do. At the moment, Year 9 are painting and starting their first project where they need to do blended paint. Here's a section that's been blended with a brush. And further over here is a section which has been blended with a piece of foam. I actually use those magic eraser foams that you can buy in the supermarket in the cleaning department. The first method is blending with a brush and fresh, wet paint. Notice how I'm painting the edge of the shape because I want that to be nice and sharp and not have a brushy edge. I'm actually using the side of the brush to apply the paint. That's the darkest tone. I'm now mixing and going to apply the next tone that I want to blend. And note that I'm also making sure that I blend that edge in nicely so that I get a nice sharp edge there. Adding enough paint and keeping it wet enough. You can include flow medium or a liquefying medium in your paint to make this a little easier. You can also underpaint the shape with some medium if you wish to add the top layers like a glaze, but I find it just as easy to paint straight away with the paint in a nice liquidy state. You need to wipe your brush frequently throughout, of course, to clean it, but also when you're blending, it's better to have your brush sometimes a little dry between the tonal areas so that you don't drag a tone that's particularly dark into an area that's really light. Now the technique for this is I'm using a larger brush than what I applied the paint with, and I'm using it very, very lightly to really brush across the surface. Very similar touch to the way that you would apply, say, blush or makeup to your face. You're really only using the tip of the brush, and it's a fairly loose, soft brush, acrylic paint brush, and I'm really just using a sort of sweeping movement to kind of blend those areas together. And it is a bit of touch and go. You just have to get the feel of it. Practice it in your sketchbook or practice it on a spare canvas or an old canvas, and you really do just muddle the paint together. It is a matter of working across the joins between the colours or the tones and actually very, very lightly swishing back and forward to literally blend the paint together. Now, I've lost my lightest area there, so you can see I'm putting some darker colour, some more white paint into that area to try and bring that area up a little bit lighter. Just about finished. Just a few edge qualities there that I have to brush out. So again, drying my brush off so that I can start to blend that together. You notice that I make mistakes and there are areas that aren't blending so well, and you just go back over it again and again until you achieve the sort of blend and evenness that you want between the tones. The next method is using a sponge to blend. You start off in a very similar way to what you do with blending between the layers, and the paint needs to be quite wet. So as I said before, I'm using one of those magic cleaning sponges. You find these in packets of sort of 6 or whatever in the cleaning department of the supermarket. They're just a really fine textured sponge, and you can bend the sponge to make it fit the shape, or you can even cut it with a cutting knife so that you've got a really small piece of sponge. The way that you work the sponge over the paint is to dab and drag the paint slightly. The sort of motion that you see me using there. and you're trying to blend the joins between each of the tonal areas. If you find that the paint gets dry, then just repeat and put on some more wet paint. Make sure that the paint is wet enough for it to keep blending and not so dry that you can see the brush marks. Okay, so you can see how using a sponge is also an easy way to blend the paint. So what I'll let you do now is watch the rest of the demonstration. After this, there's one slow demonstration of using the brush to mix wet paint. And it's just done in a very slow way, in a very repetitive way, so that you can observe carefully, stop, try it out yourself. And so now you've seen the two ways that you can blend paint, using either a brush and wet paint or a sponge and wet paint.